So it's 7:02. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today's meetup, which is put on by the West Valley Tech, I don't want to call it a council, but it's people in the West Valley kind of get together and we talk about technology stuff. This is our first one that we've ran in the webinar version. We usually hold these in person at the Grand Canyon University. But actually, I appreciate everybody taking some time to hop on and learn a little bit about command line interface. So on the screen right now, hopefully you're seeing my, my matrix background and deciphering the command line interface. And we're going to talk a little bit about why first, and then we're going to go ahead and do some actual hands-on pieces that go along with it. So for those that joined, if you did not see, we're going to go to webandmol.org and you can go to register. You can create a free account, username, email, address, password. You're going to have to remember your username and password because that's how you're going to log into the emulator on the backend side. So hopefully you're not creating some really messed up username and password or something like that. But we'll refresh this before we actually get into it. Hopefully you're all familiar with what a GUI interface is. If you're used to a Mac or a Windows and you have a mouse, you're using what's called a graphical user interface. There's pictures, there's icons, the little arrow for the mouse moves around on the screen. And that's the most traditional way to interact with a computer. But sometimes, especially when you're working in a technology job, you might be interacting with a server and that might not have access to a GUI interface. It's very possible that you're going to have to connect through some kind of terminal window and actually run everything from a command line. There are multiple types of command line. The most common ones are the DOS computer if you're running on a Windows machine. The other ones are Linux. For what we're going to do tonight, we're going to run ours in a Linux environment, which is very similar to a Mac OS, but it's not exact. It'll be pretty similar to it though. I was going to try to allow you to everyone work on their own computer, but there is enough differences between what you would experience on a Windows machine at a DOS prompt and what you would experience on a Mac or a Linux machine at the bash prompt. So tonight we're going to do everything. That's why I'm creating that environment up on the webandmol. But command line interface is exactly what you would probably expect if I talk about a command line. If you don't know what a command line is, it's just text where you type something in. There's a little prompt with a blinking cursor. And you type something in like, I want to see what files are in this folder, or I want to copy this file to that folder. There's no click, drag, and drop that you're used to from a GUI interface. If you don't, well, let's actually go to the next slide here. So why do you need to know this? Most jobs, if you're going to be in IT, don't list command line interface or understanding the Linux operating system or the DOS prompt or PowerShell in their job description. But when you start your job and you start working in IT, it's very likely at some point you're going to have to get on and type something and not have access to a mouse or the pretty desktops that you're used to as part of your normal job on your normal computer. So command line interface is not something, again, they're going to necessarily market, but it's going to set you apart if you're going to go in an interview. And I would make a big deal out of it if you go in and they start asking you any type of technology questions, whether you're going to be in cybersecurity, system administration, database administration, programming, computer science, or any other technology field. If they're asking you questions, I would offer up that say, hey, I've got some familiarity with the command line and explain that it's the Linux and operating system, the bash shell or a PowerShell in Windows on a Windows operating system in DOS. Because it's going to set you apart. These are skills that are slowly dying, but they're still needed every day when it comes to a role in IT. Some things that you can do very easily with command line is you can manage your files faster and easier because you can script it out. I know that in Windows you can record your cursor and your mouse and you move around it, but I can script very clearly what I want to do from a command line. I can say, navigate to this folder, copy all the files that end with a .log, move them to this directory, and delete them from the current spot. I can script that in seven or eight lines of code, and it would just run that automatically. If I was going to try to do that from a Windows environment where I'm dragging stuff around, it would be a little more sloppy. So you can access, I'm going to go ahead and get somebody's, see who's got some noise. Let's see. Can't tell who's making the noise on that one, but anyway. So you can access computers remotely. Sometimes if you're working on a cloud environment, you're not going to actually have a remote desktop where you can go ahead and log in and use it. So you might have to use the command line using a terminal window to get to it. And the same thing with automated tasks. I can go ahead and automate some of the tasks that go along with it. So, so that's why you need to know it. Okay. So there are some different command lines environment. We talked about the DOS prompt. So if you were on a DOS and you ever go to command line or command window in DOS, you'll see something that looks like this. It's a C prompt to tell you what hard drive you're on. And then also it's going to have the little slash that goes along with that piece of it. So somebody's got some noise poking around. So if it's you, just go ahead and mute yourself. I can't seem to figure out who's got the noise on it, but and then from the bash shell and the Linux shell both run in a bash environment. And the first part here is going to be who your account is. And then the second part is going to be the folder you're working on. So in this case, I'm starting off on the My Mac at the root directory, and it's me who's logged in. From a Linux environment, I'm the root user running on my server, and I'm at the root of the whole hard drive with the backslash. For what we're going to do for our exercise, you're going to have your username. You're going to be running on the webml.org site, and you're going to be in your home directory. That tilde says your home directory. We'll talk a little bit more about what these pieces mean as we navigate through our system, but I did want to at least get you familiar with the command line environments and show you how it might be represented on the screen. So from a DOS prompt, it would look something like that. On a Linux, it looks something like this. In our environment, it's going to look something like that. And we'll be typing after the $sign in this case, or if we're on a real Linux, we go ahead and type after the £sign. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down here. So this is one of the commands that we're going to play around with tonight. It's the ls command. The ls command is the list command. If I wanted to see all the files and folders where I am, we're going to type ls. And then depending on what flags, and when you see this little dash here, we're going to play around with some of these dashes, which are flags. So this is the basic ls command. This is an ls command that lists all of my files and folders with dates and access and file size and stuff like that. And then I can use an A to show hidden files. I can combine my various flags. In this case, I'm going to do the A and the L, which will show me all hidden files and give me the long version, which is all the details. If I want to see which of the files are directories, they'll put a backslash at it. I can use a capital F. And command line is case sensitive. That's one of the things that might drive some of you crazy, especially those coming from a Windows environment. If you start typing everything in uppercase, you're going to have all kinds of things saying can't recognize, don't know what you're talking about, error, all that kind of fun stuff. So it is going to be case sensitive. You can see the different version. Actually, that version has actually got 2 dashes in front of that one. And we're going to play a little bit around with the man file, the man piece here. So I'm going to skip that piece. Let's go ahead and play with our tool. So if you, for those that joined a little bit later, we went to this site called WebMinal, WEBMINAL.org. And you can create a free account there. It asks for you to create a username, your email, and your password. So if you have a chance and you want to follow along with what we're going to do, go ahead and create that free account. And if you get to this page, we'll kind of kickstart from there. So I think Latoya, you were the only one that came in a little bit later. So if you're going to follow along, just go ahead and create that account. It takes about 10 seconds to type in the information. And I don't think, for those that registered, did it send you a confirmation email? Did you have to verify your email?
Yes.
Okay, so you might have to wait for, click the link when it comes into your email to get to that piece of it. And while the people are doing that, when you're on this page, once you're logged in, you can go ahead and click this terminal link here. And you should, on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen here now. So this is your username. and your password. So whatever you use to log into WebMO, it's going to be the same pieces of information, which will get you this horrible looking color coordinated website. Actually, you're running an emulator, which is seeming like we're on a Linux machine, but we're running in a web browser. So I'll give you a couple seconds to get into that, and then we're going to play around with some of our commands and see what we can accomplish. Okay, does anybody need any more time to get to where we're going? Nope. Okay, so the first command I want to look at, and I have these slides, and I'll make them available through the meetup after this meeting, and they'll have some of these commands on there. But the first one we want to look at is we want to do a PWD. PWD, again, remember this is case sensitive, and this is the path to where we currently are in the folder structure. So as we navigate up and down the folder tree, it's going to be important that we can figure out where we are. So if we're trying to do something and you say, hey, Rob, I can't see this folder we just created, I'm going to ask you to type PWD to see where you are, because it's possible maybe you didn't go into a folder or you're too deep to see the various pieces of it. So PWD is kind of like that, those signs in the middle of a field that say go left to go to Chicago, go right to go to Las Vegas, or whatever you're going to do. So it's going to help us navigate around. So that's the PWD command. The next one is the ls command. That was the one we showed you just a second ago on a couple of slides. But if you type in ls, it's going to tell you the files that you have inside yours. Now, my guess is that you don't have anything in your environment. Most likely yours just came back empty. And that's because you haven't put anything into your folder yet. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove my, my files here so I can get back down to what yours looks like. RMDIR. Oh, it's not empty, so I have to RMDIR-F test. Oops. Well, we'll have to come back and figure that one out. Okay, so now if I do an ls, and I'm not sure why it changed from pink to white. I wouldn't worry too much about that, but the color coordination is going to be there. So right now in our folder, you probably have nothing in there. The first thing we want to do is we want to make a directory. We want to make something that we can play around with. And the command for that is mkdir, and then you can type the word test and then hit enter. So mkdir space test will make a directory. If you get any errors, we can, it's probably because there's some kind of typo in there, but when you're done, type in an ls and you should see test. Mine shows up in blue underneath your line that you just typed it on. And now I'm going to type ls space dash all. So I'm doing ls space, and then that flag that we talked about, the al, that's going to show you all the things that we didn't even know we had in our folder with us, because A says, I want to see everything, including all the hidden files, and L gives us some information about those files and folders that we actually have access to. So the ls is list everything. You'll notice that there's a couple files here that have dots. These are those hidden files in a Linux or command line. Their configuration, their settings files, there's some stuff that you normally would not have the person change. So that's why when you do an ls, they normally don't show up. All of these are dot files. By doing the A, they show me all those. The one that's not is this test one. If you look all the way over on the left-hand side, you'll see a D in front of it. That means I have a directory. The other stuff that I see here, this is all permissions. The first column is all permissions, and we're not going to cover that today because we could spend all day talking about the permissions that go along with that. The next one is the size. So these dot and double dots, I'm not going to talk about those right now. We're going to talk about how to use them later on, so disregard that. But notice everything else here is really small. These aren't size. These are their UID numbers. Sorry, this is their size over here. So this one. It tells me who owns the file, and who has access to the file. So I have two columns of information here. There's possible I would have somebody else would own it and someone else would have access to it. So that's some different settings. These are the file size. Then it's got a date that they were created or last accessed. So those are that part. And then it tells you the name of the file. So this is the LS piece of it. We're not going to spend too much time. Every now and then we'll come back over here to take a look at what files are in there. But the LS one is probably the most common command that you would use. Now, how do I get into this new folder that I just created? I created this test folder. So if I want to change directories into test, I can use my CD command and tell it I want to go into test. So I can do CD space test, which means change directory. I'm in one directory in my Rob Loy or in your user folder, and I want to go into test. So if I type CD space test and hit enter, notice that my command line actually changed. Instead of using that little tilde, the little kind of warped minus sign, it now says test, and that tells me the folder I'm in. To confirm that, you can type pwd, and you'll see now that your folder went from home, your username, to home, your username, and then test. If you don't see test at the end of it, you did not change directories into the test folder. How are we doing? Everybody still following along? Okay, I'll assume everybody's good. So let's go ahead and make another directory inside of here. So we're going to do a mkdir, and this directory is going to be called deeper, D-E-E-P-E-R. Whoops, two E's. Deeper. So the first one was test, and now we're going one level deeper. The names are completely up to you. You can call them anything you want. I'm just, trying to use some stuff to keep us moving forward. So mkdir space deeper. And then you can go ahead and navigate one level deeper using your CD into the deeper folder. So use your CD. Everything's got a space there. Everything's case sensitive. So if you named your folder uppercase, you're going to have to use that to navigate into it. And then you can use your PWD to confirm that you're actually in your deeper folder. Okay, let's go ahead and make a file now, something that we can play around with. We are going to touch, just like you would spell the word touch, and make a file. We're going to call it id.txt. id.txt, again, all lowercase, touch space id.txt. What touch does is it makes an empty file call that. Now we don't have Word and we don't have text editor. We don't have all those other fun tools on here. So we have to be able to make files that we can put content into. There's other ways to do it, but we're using the basic commands here from a command line. So we're going to touch it. And if you do your ls now, you'll see that file in our folder. You should see id.txt in our folder. And if I do a PWD, I think we're still in that deeper folder. Everything's good from that environment. If you do an ls space -al, that's going to list everything, and you'll see that id.txt is owned by me or you. It's accessed by you. It's got 0 files, 0 bytes. This means it's an empty file, and it was created at July 9th, 421, which 421, I'm guessing is, what time zone would that be? That would be probably Hawaii. I don't know where the server is. I don't know, wherever it is, the time is not where, my clock says 721, so it's not 421, but.
Is it a year off too? It says 19, only in 20.
July 9th, you mean? The day it off or a year off?
I mean, it looks like the date itself, July 9th. Today's the 8th, and it says 19th.
Oh, mine doesn't say 19 on it. Mine just says July 9.
Okay, never mind.
Different. Yeah. So is today the 8th or the 9th though? Today's the 8th. It's probably 4:30, 4:21 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. That's probably where it's running the 4 o'clock time. So, okay. So let's go ahead and make a copy of id.txt. Oh, somebody saying something? No? Okay. So let's copy that ID one. So we're going to use the CP command, which stands for copy. So CP space, we're going to tell it what file we're going to copy. So id.txt. And then we're going to give it another name. We'll call this one bob.txt. So we're going to copy id.txt and we're going to create a new version of it called bob.txt. And then when you run that, you'll see now I have two files in my folder directory. One's bob.txt and one's id.txt. And if you want to check them out, you can do the ls-al. And the Bob was created 3 minutes after my id.txt. And they still have zero size that goes along with them. And we're going to be putting some content into these files here. So, we're going to have a little more fun with it right now, but that's a little step up in terms of complexity. So we just want to get some of the basic stuff down here right now. Okay, we're going to create another directory here. Actually, we're gonna navigate up and down the tree a little bit first before we do that. So we know when we type CD and a folder name, we move into that folder. But what if I want to go back up one folder? So right now I'm in deeper. What if I want to get back up to the inner folder? To do that, it's CD space and then 2 dots. 2 dots say from the folder I'm in, go to the parent folder. So CD space dot dot. And we can check where we are now and we'll see that I'm in the test folder. I'm no longer in the deeper folder. So CD space dot dot navigates back up. And if you want to go up even one more folder, you could do CD space dot dot and we'd be all the way back to our home folder where I'm back where I can see the test one. So CD space dot dot goes back up the directory hierarchy that we have into it. Anybody got any questions? Nope. Okay, now we're going to make a big leap all the way back down into that inner folder. So we're going to do CD space and we're going to type in test and then we're going to use the slash and we're going to say inner. So that's going to take us through the test directory or folder all the way into the inner one. So we're going to jump from our home folder all the way down into inner folder. So CD space test slash inner, and there's no spaces between test and inner and the slashes. It's all one word that goes along with it. And if you hit enter there and do your PWD, you can see you moved all the way from my Rob Loy folder, or in this case, your user folder, through the test folder, all the way back down to the inner folder. I'm going to show you a little bit of a shortcut here. So we're going to go ahead and make another directory here, mkdir. And bear with me, we're going to make this one a little bit longer. We're going to call this one Grand Canyon University. University. And keep everything lowercase, but spell it all out or spell it as closely as you can to it. It's not going to be, as long as you get the first couple letters right, it will be able to prove what we're going to try to do here. So make directory Grand Canyon University. That's a mouthful. No one's going to want to sit here and type that every single time when I have to navigate up and down my folder structure into the various pieces. So Linux is going to make it a little bit easier. And actually this works on most command lines. So, whether you're working on a Windows machine, you're trying to do some scripting on a Windows machine, your Mac or a Linux machine, this should work. So first I want to make sure that directory exists. So I'm going to go ahead and do my ls-al. And sure enough, there's my Grand Canyon University, shows up in purple, well, blue, whatever I guess happens to be. Now I want to navigate into that one. And we know to navigate into a specific folder, we use the CD command and then we type the full path. Well, no one again wants to type that full part. So just go ahead and type G and hit the tab button, your tab key. What it does is it's auto going to complete that. And if I had more than one file that started with a G, it wouldn't necessarily complete it. It would not know which one it's going to go. But you can type any amount of letters in that word and hit the tab and it will auto complete it because it says, well, you're trying to change directories. The only directory that I have that starts with a G in here is this Grand Canyon University one. So that tab functionality does the autocomplete, which is a very handy tool. So I'm actually going to use my CD space and I'm going to use my G and my tab to move into my Grand Canyon directory. And look at your path now. You got your username at webamol.org, and then you got this long path like that. You can configure your shell to not give you the full paths like this, so it becomes a little easier to control. But that's not a topic we're going to cover tonight. So that's the Grand Canyon University. Okay, well, now we have this Bob file that's up one level from where we are. We want to move Bob into our Grand Canyon University. So we're going to learn another command, and that's the MV command. Anybody want to guess what MV stands for? Move, maybe? Yep, so we're going to move a file, and we can't, I mean, I can type bob.txt, but bob.txt doesn't exist here. So we want to go back up one directory and find Bob there. The command to go back up a directory is my two dots. And then I'm going to type Bob and I'm going to hit my tab. I think I got Bob in there, bob.txt. And I'm going to move it to a dot. I'm going to move it to where I currently am. So I'm going to go back up a folder from Grand Canyon University. I'm going to find that Bob file that I created. And then I'm going to put a space and a period, which means move Bob to the current directory I'm in. So if I go ahead and click that, I cannot find Bob. So we got to figure out where Bob is. So I'm going to go back up a directory and I'm going to do an ls, and Bob is not on that directory. Where is Bob? You must have put it up one level higher. CD enter. Where did I put Bob? Sorry, I gotta figure out so I'm in, first I gotta figure out where I am. So I'm in inner. I'm gonna go back up a level. And now I'm at test. Where did my, where did Bob go? Anybody else find Bob? CD. And why is inner and deeper both at the same level in test? There's Bob. So let's see where Bob is. So Bob is in deeper. And then I do my ls and I can, where did Grand Canyon go now? Did I put Grand Canyon? Did I navigate back up and put Grand Canyon at the wrong spot? Grand Canyon. I didn't do a PWD when I was at Grand Canyon. So, okay, so ls PWD. I'm at deeper. I got to figure out where I put Grand Canyon. Ooh. So what you're seeing on my screen, I don't know if you have a chance to see it. I actually went too far up and I'm actually seeing everyone else. These are all the different people that have users. And in fact, if I looked hard enough, I could probably find your usernames in there. If you get something that's doing this where it just keeps running on, command or control C on all computers will exit you out of that and get you back to where you need to go. So I got to go back into my directory and there's test. Deeper LS. Sorry, this shouldn't be going backwards. Did I create inner with you guys? I don't think I did. I think that's my problem. I'm actually went to a different directory because I was playing around with this earlier and I shouldn't have been playing around with this. Should have had an empty one. There's Grand Canyon. Okay, so for those that were following along, I'm going to go back up one level. So in your, everybody type in PWD and let's see where we are. So if you are in a folder that's not the test folder that we created, do a CD space dot dot and then do an PWD again and see if you've got to that test folder. So we're going to navigate ourselves back down to that test folder. So if you're still too deep, do a CD dot space dot dot and work your way back up to the test folder.
Is Grand Canyon supposed to be in the test folder, not in inner?
It should be an inner. That's I put it. I had you should. I don't know. Do you have an inner folder?
No, I don't.
Yes,
At
that's the
least.
problem because I didn't. I put mine in the inner folder and you don't have an inner folder. That's why I was a little bit lost. So so when you get back to test, if you do a ls-al, you should have the deeper one. We made a deeper one, right? So I'm going to go into deeper, CD into deeper. And if I do a PWD now, I see Bob and I see my ID index one there and I'm in deeper. So home, your username, test deeper for a PWD. And I'm going to have to make my directory again. So don't make another directory for Grand Canyon. I'm going to go ahead and create a new Grand Canyon University there. And then go into that, back into that Grand Canyon University. So I'm going to go back into Grand and I'm going to use my tab to complete it. And now I think I'm in good shape. So test deeper Grand Canyon University. Okay. So now we should be able to do our move command. Sorry for that little detour there. So we're going to move, we're going to use our dot dot and we're going to do Bob. And there's the tab recognize that Bob existed. So that's good. And then we're going to do a dot to, whoops, a dot to complete that. And now Bob has moved in there. So I'm going to go back just a second. So first of all, I made sure that I was in my Grand Canyon University folder. I did that with a PWD. And then I typed MV space dot dot because I want to go back up to my deeper folder and I want to get the bob.txt file. So dot dot slash bob.txt and then a space and then a period, which means take bob.txt from the folder that's one above where I am and move it into the Grand Canyon University where I currently am. And that's not going to make a copy of it. That's actually going to physically move that file from one folder into the other one. So I have an inner folder that I should not have been playing around with. So that's the move command and how you can move stuff. And we can move Bob a little bit further, but we're actually going to move that ID.txt file all the way up to our home directory now. So we're going to do, we're still in the Grand Canyon folder. We can confirm that with a PWD. And we're going to use the MV command. Our ID.txt file is actually one level up. So we're going to use our dot dot We're going to use our slash and we're going to type ID and let the tab button complete the text that goes along with it. Slash ID .txt. Deeper, yeah, txt. And we're going to do dot dot slash dot dot slash dot. So the dot dots are going to move back one folder, and then we're going to move the dot dot slash to move back up another folder, which puts us at the test level. And then the dot says put the ID text field at that location. And now I can't find ID text. What's going on with my stuff here? This is not, something seems messed up here. There's the directory. Move dot dot ID dot text. And then I'm going to do dot dot slash dot dot slash dot. There it goes. Oh, I see. Somebody caught on the fact I must have had some commas in that one. I don't know. Yes, I do have a commas in there. I hit the wrong key for that. So case sensitivity and characters have a lot to do with what works on that particular one. So this took the ID field, which was one level above it, and moved it up a couple stuff. So if I go back up a folder with my CD dot dot, and I do an LS, there's nothing there except for my Grand Canyon folder. If I go back up one more level, CD dot dot, and do an LS, there's my ID.txt. So I moved it up to this level, which is my test folder. And I'm going to remove inner here. Let's see, let's try here. Force. Get that part of it. Okay, so PWD, we're in test. We can go back up one more folder. So it's CD space dot dot, and we should be all the way back to our root folder now, which is home / your username. So a couple of commands we played around with right now is we did the ls multiple times. We did the PWD, which tells us what the path is to where we're working. We used the CP to copy a file, and we used a move MV to move a file. So the next thing we want to do is we want to talk about the remove one. I've been trying to remove this directory for a little while and nothing's working with it. So there is a command that's called man, like a manual, just like you would get instructions when you buy something. All of the commands within our Linux environment has a manual page that goes along with it. So if you type man and then type the command we're going to try to do. So we're going to try to do the rmdir. We're going to do the man page for the command called rmdir, which is remove directory. So that's going to give us a bunch of text that comes on our screen that's going to be formatted that looks something like this. Okay, so remove empty directories. So we don't have empty directories, so it gives us the name. It gives us the synopsis, which is the rmdir with different options and directories that go along with it. And then we have ignore fail, we have remove directory and its ancestors. We don't want that one. Verbose, that will tell us details, help and version. So actually none of these are the commands specifically what we're looking for. So there is another command here. So if you look here at the bottom, it says press H for help or Q to quit. We'll go ahead and quit that one. And then we're going to type MAN and it's going to be RM. So we're just going to type RM. So not the dir, just RM. And let's see if this one gives us what we want to do. And okay, so here's the RM command. There's the synopsis that goes along with it. Then we have our description that goes along, and here's all those different options that we can do. So force, remove non-existent files and arguments, prompt before every removal. That if you have a big directory and you want to make sure you're removing stuff, you can prompt it for various pieces of it, but interactive is a prompt. No preserve root, recursive, remove directories and their contents recursively. So here's the directory we want to do, remove empty directories. So we're going to want to do the rm command, and we're going to want to use the -r to remove directories and their content. So let's go ahead and quit this one. So we're going to go ahead and hit the Q there. Let's make sure we're in the right directory. We're at the root level that we were just playing around with. And we are going to remove -r, the test directory that we just been playing around with. So rm space, the dash, which is a flag for R, and then space test, what folder. Now this is going to get rid of test and everything below test. So everything we've just been working on is going to be gone when we run this. So if I run that part and I do an ls, now my home directory is completely empty. So I just removed everything. So I was doing rmdir, which I think works on a Windows machine. So I'm kind of mixing my metaphors when it comes along with the various pieces of it. But that one, the rm-r-test is a recursive delete. Now you can probably think of all kinds of things that could go wrong if you run this in the wrong directory at the wrong time. If I ran this at the root level, if I went back up a couple different levels and ran that rm-r test, first of all, I don't think I'd have permission, but don't go testing it. Please don't go destroy their whole system on it. But rm-r test can remove big blocks of code. And if I don't have any interaction, unlike a GUI interface, there's no undo. I can't just type undo what I just did. When you do an rm-r on a directory, all that stuff below there is gone. You would have to restore your particular server. So just command line, that's one of the drawbacks to it, is that it gives you some pretty awesome power if you have the right permissions. And you never want to run the remove commands when you have root access, because that means I have access to every folder and I can pretty much wipe out a server. For those that are running in a cybersecurity environment, that's kind of what some of those people want to do. They want to hack into the system and play havoc with your folder structure and your permission and do stuff like running that rm command that goes along with it. Okay, so we wiped out everything and now we have nothing to play around with, so that's good. That's not what we want to play around with, but we're going to go ahead and touch another command here. We're going to run that touch command and we're going to create a file called play.txt. That's going to create an empty file for us to play around with. So touch is the command line, and if we could actually run man on touch and see all the stuff you could do with it. And then we give it the name of our file. But let's say I want to put some text into play.txt. Well, we don't have Word or anything like that where I can just go ahead and do it. So we're going to do this from the command line, which is going to be a sloppy experience. And we could spend a whole hour just talking about all the cool stuff we could do with our editor that we're going to open up here. But we're going to play around with just some very basic commands. So we're going to use a VI. VI is a text editor that runs from the command line. So we're not going to have a lot of bells and whistles. So we're going to type VI play, and we're going to let tab finish it. You can actually hit play and then hit tab. It'll actually add the .txt that goes along with it. So VI space play.txt. And it's going to open up a black screen that says I'm now in here. And if you ever had to type, let's say you had to type your report up in this editor, you would probably quit in a matter of no time, because this is not going to be the easiest to move around with it. First of all, if I can't even type right now. If you see, if they try to type something, it says no previous regular expression. You actually have to edit, or you have to enter edit mode. So go ahead and press I. And now you'll see at the bottom it says insert, and you can say hello world in your text editor, or whatever text you want to put inside that particular one. So we're still in insert mode. I have no way of actually saving my text or anything else. And by the way, you can actually add more lines here. You can do hello world from GCU, and this is July, whatever you want to put in there. As long as you don't exit insert mode, you can keep typing, and you can go ahead and I don't think you can hit delete there. I guess you can't hit delete. That's good, because some text editors you can't. When you're ready to exit it, you're going to do a Control-C. And notice when you do Control-C, that insert piece is gone at the bottom. But we haven't saved this file. If we exit this file, we're going to actually lose it. So we're going to do a Shift: and we're going to say W for write and Q for quit. So the colon shows up at the bottom, and then you hit W for write this file, which is save it, and Q for quit, and hit enter. That 0 file size one we had now has 35 bytes or bits, 35 bytes in it. So depending on what words you typed in it, yours might be different file size in there. But my play.txt, which was a 0 when I touched it, now has 35 bytes that goes along into it. Okay, let's go ahead and make another file. We're going to touch, and we're going to call toys, TOYS.txt. And we're going to touch another file. We'll call it things.txt. So we created touch toys.txt and then touch things.txt. Okay, and I did an ls just to show you that I created those files. So I have 3 text files in here now. Play, which has 35 bytes in it, and then things and toys are empty in terms of what's inside of it. Let's say I want to find one of those files that has some text in it. I'm going to run a command called grep, and I'm going to look for that hello that I typed. Oops, hello. And I'm going to look in the current directory for all those files. So in the current directory, I'm going to look for a file that has the word hello in it. And grep is a directory. So we're going to actually do grep dot, oops, hello. Actually, I got to take that back. Let me try this out a little bit different here. Don't type this yet. Let me just make sure I get this working before I have you type it in there. Cannot access hello ls dash grep double quote. Oops. Cannot access hello grep. Hello. I know that's misspelled. I have a command on here. Let me go ahead and pull my PowerPoint up here, because that one, thought I had that one down here. So we're going to go down to this one right here. So grep -r, which we don't need to do recursive, single quote, and then a star. So that one should be what we were typing in there. So we did grep. I'm going to go ahead and do the -r. I don't think I have to do the -r. We're going to do hello and the dot. Oh, I didn't match up my quotes, so I have a single quote and a double quote there, so I'm going to have to get out of that. So Control C gets out of that. So grep -r hello period is what we tested on there. Oh, I don't know why it worked that time. What did I do up here? I must have did something a little bit different. Oh, I put single quotes on it. That's probably what's going on with that piece of it. So, so grep is a command that says, I want to look through the files that I have access to, and I'm going to do the -r, and then I'm going to say what string I'm looking for, and it's going to tell me what file has it. So play.txt, and it's actually going to show you the line of text that goes along with it. So if you're doing some pretty cool stuff with data analysis, you can do some really cool scripting within this environment and do some files. So right now it's not very cool. We have 3 files and 2 of them are empty. So if you wanted to play around with it, you could definitely do that. So it's grep space -r with that flag. And then the quotes, hello, space, and this tells you what folder. And you can specify any folder you want here. If we had those folder structure from before, I could do dot, or I could do slash test slash inner slash Grand Canyon and look through files in that folder. And I can actually, this will recursively go through a big folder structure and play around with it. So the other part here that's really cool about Linux, or most of the command lines, if you press the up arrow, it will navigate, it will go back through all the different commands that you've ran. So if you want to see the commands that you ran, you can use the up arrow and just keep going up all the way through it, all the way back, probably to the beginning, the very first thing we did, which was make directory, I think called test. There's that inner one that I messed up there. There's my test one that I did up above there at that point. So you can navigate all the way through that. And if you don't want to run any of those, you can do your command C or control C to get back out of that and get you back to the cursor. So you can actually run any of those commands too. As you navigate back, if you find a command you want to rerun, you find that command, you hit enter, and it'll rerun that particular command. So if it's independent of the folder you're on, it'll run it in that current folder. So it might not be in the same folder you originally ran it. So you do have to be careful knowing where you are from that particular case. So I know I got a little bit lost because I had that inner folder that I put the Grand Canyon into it, but these are the most basic commands that you're going to have to work with. You're going to have to understand the PWD to know where you are. You're going to have to know the ls command and a couple different flags to get some details from it. The copy command, the move command, the grep command, the remove command. Those are probably the most basics. And I'm going to jump back out of here just for a second because we're getting close to the 8 o'clock time. But I do have a list of some of the other commands that, again, I'll make this available here. So there's the PW command. There, we did the CD command to move around the various structures. So there's the ls command and the all and how to move through the folders. And there's the dots and the slashes to move back up and down through it. Make directory, we made directory. There's the remove directory, and there's the one I was trying to run earlier, rm-rf, which was recursive and force, and give it a folder name. And if all directories are empty, then you can run the rmdir. It's usually safer if you think the folders you're going to delete are empty, then the rmdir is the safest command because it won't let you delete it if it's not empty. So if you want to be secondly or really ensure that you're not going to destroy something, then the rmdir folder name is going to be the safer of the option of those two. The copy command, where you can copy your file name to a new file name. You can copy file name and put it in different folders. You can move stuff around. You can actually use move to copy also. So I can move a file from one file name to the file name in the same folder. I've always used the CP, but I know some system administrators just use the MV command for everything. There's probably, there's really no difference that I know of. So if you didn't want to use the copy command, you could use the move command also. You just give it a different file name when you move it across. We talked about the man page. So if you want to see all the different flags and options that come along with the various options, you can go ahead and do the man, and any one of the commands has that particular option. We didn't do a find, a locate, or which, since we probably should have ran the find before we destroyed our folder structure, because it's not very cool to find something when you're when you only have one folder to play around with. And then I just have this one down here, but these command lines can get really complicated very quickly. So this is saying I want to find, we're actually looking for something, we're looking for sample text. So we're using the find command. We're going to start one level deeper than where we currently are in the GFG folder. We're going to look for the name of a file called sample, and we're going to actually remove it by passing in a parameter. So when it finds this particular file, it's going to use that as a parameter, and it's going to execute a remove function at that, and then it's going to end it. So this is a command line script. You can tell it's got a semicolon on it, but it's going to run all of this. And the best people, and as a programmer, you probably don't necessarily need to know that level of detail. But if you want to get into cybersecurity or system administration, you're going to learn how to code these kind of lines where you're passing information from one command to the other one. So this is one command, and I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to execute it as the RM. Remember, RM is remove folders. And this is I, which means I want it to be interactive. So I'm going to look for sample .txt in that folder, and I'm going to prompt them, do I want to remove it? So this is what that particular command line would do. We did a touch. We didn't do a cat. Cat is kind of like read a file. If we could actually just cat out one of the files that would print it out to the screen. And then we did go into this VI. There are probably 100 different commands that you can do with VI. We just did the insert one. And then we ran the write and the save and the quit one. But you have the ability to delete characters, delete whole lines. If you want to exit stuff, there's insert mode, there's overwrite mode, there's append mode, there's binary mode, there's all kinds of stuff with it. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage you all to go learn VI, but if your career or your job requires that you get on a command line, then VI is probably going to be your go-to tool to make changes to text. So I threw a lot at you. I mean, we went through a lot of different stuff. We took a little detour through through me having a folder in the wrong particular spot. But command line is a very different world than most people grew up on, because you don't have your cursors and your mouse and your menu bars and everything else that goes along with it. But at some point in an IT career, you're probably going to have to get on the command line and make some changes. And you can easily Google it, but I also encourage you to kind of take a time, find these tools like this Webinol, and just play around. Add a couple files, delete a couple files, play with the commands like the find, build a folder structure, and have some fun with it. So anyway, that's the 1 hour tonight of the command line. If anybody has any feedback, I'd love to hear it. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it. So what do you guys have for me? Oh, crickets chirping. So either I totally overwhelmed you or I totally bored you. I don't know which one it was, but I'm hoping that you at least got something out of this one. I am going to ask, so we do run these probably about every other month. Sometimes I do it every month, but I'm always looking for topics. The one outstanding topic that we have right now is to do a Docker one, a Kubernetes. So I'm trying to set one of those up. I don't have a lot of experience in that environment. So I'm looking for somebody who would like to do a demo on how to set up a Docker environment or a Kubernetes, some kind of container environment. The other thing that we're looking to do is a little bit of Python taste, but I know there's already a Python meetup, so I don't want to kind of step on their toes. But does anybody else have any other suggestions for something that they would like to see covered as part of these these webinars? Boy, you guys are a fun audience. I can't tell what's going on. So you can't hear me, right? It's not just, you guys aren't just staring at an empty screen, right?
Well, one idea might be more bash scripting. I really liked that bash example that you had a second ago.
Okay,
Um,
the one that's this one, like right here.
yeah, that's kind of like a.
Okay.
So I don't know that much about Perl, but I know that Perl can do a lot with one-liners.
Yep.
And so this is basically a bash one-liner, which I didn't even think about.
Yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, I could definitely do one of those. We would have to create a folder structure to make it pretty cool. So if we use this particular tool, we'd have to spend a few minutes just kind of setting up a folder structure, but we could create those pretty quick. Pull some files in. I could also show you an SCP, which is kind of like a FTP from the command line if you want to pull files in from the web. So we can maybe do something along that line. Yeah, okay, so bash scripting. That's good. We got to vote for bash scripting. Anybody else have any other suggestions? No? Okay, well, we're at 8:01. I normally don't like to keep people past the time I say we're going to keep you. So this user group, this meetup, feel free to throw some chats, some suggestions into the discussion forum. And I usually check that on a regular basis. But right now I think the next one I have set up is to do some log analysis using some of these tools, and then but maybe we can do some of that with our bash script too. Then we can maybe pull some files and do some log analysis with it. So, okay, well, that's it for tonight. Thanks for joining, and pay attention. We'll have another meetup probably in August, towards the end of August sometime. So, thank you very much.